Where did the Japanese come from? The country of the sons of Yamato is known not only for outstanding technical achievements, but also for a peculiar and ancient culture. Suffice it to say that numerous social and technical achievements of mankind were already known in Japan, at a time when the rest of the world was much more primitive. In Asia, the Japanese are considered a somewhat special, in a positive and negative way, who are aware of their own exclusivity and do not seek to merge with the surrounding peoples. Such a thing in itself. And where, in fact, did the Japanese come from? Japan, despite the antiquity of its state, was settled relatively late by its current population. Already in quite historical times, Chinese chronicles record the resettlement of a certain Wa people from the Korean peninsula to the present islands of Japan. It should be noted that this was not a quick and peaceful process. By groups and by clans, the most ancient of which is the Tang clan, Japanese tribes who spoke the language of the Altai group and anthropologically close to the Koreans moved to the archipelago. Japan, on the other hand, was populated quite densely. Austronesian-type tribes lived in the south, close to the modern inhabitants of Indonesia and Southeast Asia. And the whole north was inhabited by Ainu tribes, a huge mystery for historians. The Ainu have the appearance that combines the characteristics of all the major races. The light color of the leather and the large addition by Caucasians, with a wide nose and cheekbones of Mongoloid, a very strong growth of the beard and mustache of Australoids. Probably, if we ignore the freak of the hypothesis that the Ainu of Drevnej Caucasians, they are the remnants of humanity before the division of mankind into different races. And thanks to the isolation, the survivors in Japan are in their original form. The first state in Japan was called Yamato and was founded before the victory over numerous aborigines. However, the Ainu were not the first inhabitants of Japan. They were preceded by the Zen era, where the main population was the Proto-Jain population, however, very close to the Ainu themselves. Therefore, the settlement of Japan resembled the settlement of Britain, where one strong culture conquered another, simultaneously exterminating and mixing the population. Despite the policy of strict extermination of the Ainu, the Japanese failed to assimilate them and withdraw their cultural influence completely. The Ainu continued to make up the majority of the country's population, actively mixed with the Japanese, gave the Japanese many geographical names and hydronyms, as well as phenomena such as the Institute of Samurai and Geisha. Since the Yamato era, the struggle of the Japanese with the Ainu began, which took almost 1500 years. At first, the Japanese were inferior to the Ainu militarily, but over time they seized the initiative and began to dominate. The Ainu almost every 100 years raised uprisings, which were sometimes joined by Japanese peasants, but this did not bring a radical change and the lands of Japan steadily expanded. Ultimately, the Ainu resistance was completely suppressed, and to stop it from now on, the Japanese introduced the most stringent rules that finally regulated every step of the Ainu life. The need for reports to the elders in the settlement, from among the Japanese, observance of rituals that humiliated the dignity of the Ainu, as well as regular resettlement of young Ainu across the country to tear them away from their native culture was introduced. The Ainu were broken and defeated, surviving only in the far north of the country and on Sakhalin. But it should be noted that the Ainu had a significant impact on the anthropology and culture of Japan, and as for the samurai, most of their clans had Ainu origin. Ainu caused differences in appearance and culture, which are obvious between Japanese, Chinese and Koreans. In modern Japanese, Mongoloid origin from the Japanese tribes of Wa, Ainu and Australoid influences from the indigenous peoples of Japan are bizarrely merged. The Japanese, despite their mono-ethnicity, have a rather strongly mixed origin. This can be easily noticed on modern residents of Japan. Some of them, usually of southern origin or from the lower classes, are more similar to Thais or residents of southern China, while the other part of the Japanese has features that seem to us Euro-Mongoloid, resembling Kazakhs or Bashkirs rather than, for example, residents of China. These are people from the northern part of Japan, descendants of the ruling classes and samurai, who in 90% of cases have Ainu roots, but this fact is not advertised. Belonging to the Ainu during the 1500 years of the genocide, has become rather an abusive and unfavorable factor, which they try to hide. Thus, in the person of the Japanese, we are dealing with an amazing mixture of the unimaginably ancient population of Asia, the times before the separation of human races, and quite modern southern Mongoloids. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe to the channel, or write your thoughts in the comments.